Welcome everyone to an all-new Questionable Decisions. If you are joining us for the first time on this podcast, this is not our regular program. Normally we like to profile the life and career of fighters, but today we're doing something a little bit different. We're taking a break from that because there's just too much going on in the world of MMA not to talk about it. And so that's what this program is. So we're going to cover everything that's going on in MMA today. But first, let me introduce us. My name is Taylor Gabriels. Joining me, as always, is the Godfather, Tim Thomas. And back on the program, making me out to be a liar, is the scrappy one, Zach Gratton.
I agree with what you said, though. You never know. And
you were supposed to be gone right now. You're not supposed to be on this program. You were supposed to be a father or playing Call of Duty, and you're doing neither of those.
I'm doing neither of those right now.
Please explain.
My daughter is really comfy right now, and she doesn't want to move. So there's that. And
the pink elephant in the room is that Call of Duty comes out tonight. We were supposed to record tomorrow. We move it up to today, and all of a sudden you're available. That's the reality. Okay?
Yeah, you're right.
There's no other way to put this.
And the real sad thing is what's happening right now for Call of Duty is where my wife is. She went to GameStop to secure my spot in line for the video game that comes out in 6 hours.
This is the most Z-Pain thing of all time.
Yes,
he's here in the studio with heat, fucking chilling with his Dr. Pepper while his wife's out in the cold, reserving his game.
Your 12-month pregnant wife is standing in line for you for a video game.
World's longest pregnancy here. And she's in line.
Unbelievable, Zach.
It's actually pretty sweet, though, because you literally, at any moment, your life could change. Literally any second.
That's the only reason why my phone is on the table here, because...
Priorities, man. Put that shit on silent.
It just, yeah. Oh, man. The ultimate heel move by Taylor.
All right. So what we're really here to talk about, besides Zach's pregnant wife, is, of course, UFC 229, but there's a lot more to talk about than that. I just know that we need to kind of get that out of the way. We need to discuss everything that went on at 229, and everybody's talking about, obviously, what happened after the fight. But before we get to the post-fight antics, let's talk about the card itself. Were you guys impressed by the card? Did anything stand out to you? Do you think it was overall a success? Was it worth the pay-per-view dollars?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I could sit here and talk for 15 minutes about Tony and Pettis, and I mean the whole
fight.
It was awesome. I mean, it was a really, really, really good card. The main event didn't really go the way as a Conor fan that I would have wanted it to go, but I mean, it was an awesome fight. So from beginning to end, that card, I mean, honestly, I can't recall a single boring fight. I mean, what am I missing? Yeah,
I mean, I think the only thing that really stands out to me was, Derek Lewis and that whole thing. That was the only fight in question, but he, came in
dramatic,
literally with a bang and changed my mood about it. So I definitely think the card was worth it. I thought it was a great card. It wasn't like 217 card. It wasn't 205, but it was a damn good card.
The fight that I was, ready to take a nap on was the OSP fight, but that was an okay fight. And I think, I don't know, man. Was it Reyes?
Yeah, Dominic Reyes.
Guy's a beast, man.
It was good because you got to see. I mean, OSP has screwed me many times on a parlay bet, and he didn't fail this time either. But it was good to see just new blood in there.
Because you never know when you got a guy coming in. I mean, we follow the sport pretty closely, but sometimes you can't keep track of every fighter that's 6-2 and 7-1 and 8-0. And Reyes comes in this big spot on this mega card, and he's fighting a guy in OSP that is really extremely dangerous, and he looked phenomenal. So just want to get that out of the way, and now we can let's talk about the Derek Lewis fight.
I think we should do that later, though, to be honest with you, because we're going to want to talk about 230 at some point.
That's a good point.
Listen, everybody wants to hear about
That's
Conor
right.
Khabib.
That's right. So let me just say this really quick. The Tony Pettis fight, phenomenal. It's great to see Pettis having fun, happy, enjoying the sport. Both guys looked awesome.
Respect
a lot of fun.
There.
A great appetizer to the main event.
Yep.
Couldn't have asked for more out of that fight.
And I'm glad, a lot of people would disagree probably with this, but I'm glad it ended the way it did. a decision would have been maybe better because I would have loved to have seen a third round of that. But Tony was getting the best of him, and I didn't want to see necessarily like a TKO, which I thought maybe it was kind of going that route. It sucks that Pettis, broke his hand, but I'm glad it went out that way just because of the respect they showed for each other. Like that was, to me, it was perfect.
That was the best side of this sport, in my opinion. That was the best. It was two guys having fun, two guys giving it their all, a lot on the line, and then a ton of respect afterwards. Then the fight that happens after that is I think one of the darker sides of our sport. And let's just talk about it. I mean, do we want to talk about the fight itself? There's not a whole lot to say.
Yeah, I think everybody at this point knows how the fight played out. I think if you want to, bring up a few minor things like the fact that, look, Khabib did lose his first round ever in the UFC. That he lost was at round 3 on the judges' scorecard. That's worth noting, as he now... Part of the narrative here is how good he is, and so he did finally lose a round. The fact that Conor kind of came back a little bit, showing his heart, but which is coming to question at times. He's kind of faltered in some fights late, but he kind of came back a little bit. It was a good fight, but it was obviously hard to watch as somebody supporting Conor. But all that surprising? Not really. I mean, Khabib's a fucking world beater.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of us went in there. Not saying Conor had just a puncher's chance, because that would be super disrespectful. But, it was one of those things where we knew that Conor was either going to starch him in first or second round. And then the third round, fourth round, and fifth round might be a mauling, because Khabib he gets on top of you and he does not move. Which I was really surprised to see Conor take over like that in the third round, because we don't see him excel very well past the second round. So to me, that's something worth noting, definitely.
Well, and he got his shots in. It's like when your favorite basketball team or loses and your best shooter, if LeBron James gets an open look from 3 to end the game and he misses, you go, well, he took his best shot and he missed. My team lost. Whatever. If the Giants have their cleanup hitter up, if Buster Posey comes up and he strikes out, well, they had their best guy up and they lost. Conor in that the late stages of the fight. There was a point where they were both exhausted and they stood and traded for a couple minutes, and he got some shots in, and just like he did against Mayweather, the uppercut on Mayweather, he had a shot and it just didn't work, and he got a shot in Khabib didn't go down. Sure, diminished power because it was later in the fight and he was hurt. Yep. But he had a shot at it and it didn't work.
Are you one of the people that believes, because there's been a lot of this on Twitter, are you one of the people that believes if they fight 9 more times, Conor loses 9
Absolutely
in
not.
a row?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
No, because of the fact that he stuffed multiple takedowns, the fact that he won a round later, I think, sure, is Khabib's. Is there any way to catch up to Khabib's skill set in the next year? Probably not.
You and I talked about this before the fight, because there were rumors that Conor was working a ton on his wrestling, and I said to you, I asked you, is that the smart thing to do? We're not MMA trainers and coaches, and I'm not questioning Kavanaugh, but Kavanaugh said it himself on Rogan that if he could do it differently, he would have not worked so much on defense. And we talked about it before the fight. You can't learn a new skill, and certainly against the best in the business, if you practice that for the next 2 years, you're still not going to stop Khabib. So why not focus on your strengths? And it seems like Conor went away from his strengths, and it may have cost him.
I mean, look, I disagree with that personally. I disagree with you on fight night. I think that when Conor has such a clear deficiency, like he does with takedowns, and Khabib's entire game plan is going to be to take you down, I actually understand why they did it. It didn't work, though, so who am I to question your theory?
Well, yeah, mine is just that. It's a theory. And I wasn't really implying that he shouldn't work on it at all, just that, as Zach said, everybody watching that knows anything knows Conor's only chance to beat Khabib is on the feet, and every round starts on the feet. All you got to do is not get finished on the ground, which he ultimately did in the 4th round. But I think he just looked a little hesitant with his punches, and a lot of that could be the threat of Khabib taking him down. He just wasn't finishing on the end of his punches. But, all that said, he didn't really look like some people have said, like he was kind of lost out there or had a ton of ring rust. I didn't see that out of him. He looked playful. He was throwing kicks. He seemed confident. A lot of people are saying he looked nervous before the fight. I'm not buying
Bullshit.
that for 1 second.
I don't buy that he was nervous. I do notice a difference in his stance, though, because I was watching, like, it was like a compilation of Conor, Instant Karma with Conor McGregor, and it was Chad Mendes, Jose Aldo, Dustin Poirier, and like they were going through all those fights, and his confidence bouncing back and forth was like, it was much more loose than it was with the Khabib. So I wouldn't say it was ring rust or nervousness. I just think maybe it was like, okay, let me get comfortable. And we saw that in the third round. He got comfortable, won that round, ultimately just got his back taken. And this whole crap about he gives up his back too easy, like, it's not about him giving up his back. It's about having a monster like Khabib taking your back. Like, he's not giving it up.
And hey, look, I know I've mentioned this in the podcast before, but like, as a Chris Weidman fan, excuse me, you always look back on him and Rockhold, and at the time I'm hanging on for dear life, watching from the couch going like, let it keep going, let it keep going. But the minute it ends, you're just like, I wish that would have ended a round earlier because of all that unnecessary damage. Conor, does he look for a way out? I don't know. Did he tap pretty quick? Yeah. But did he stop the damage and live to fight another day? Yup. And ultimately, when you're him and you're trying to extend your career, and obviously this is going to be now the back nine of his run. We're still in the middle of it. This is not over, but this is going to be the back nine here. You need to save face a little bit. You need to save some and prevent some of that damage. You know what I mean?
I was pleased to hear Kavanaugh, his coach, say that he used to look to Anderson Silva and kind of take some of that style, because I saw a lot of similarities being a huge Anderson Silva fan and watching that first Chael fight. You see a lot, and granted, totally different. I'm not comparing Chael and Khabib, so don't think that. Conor and Anderson, I'm not comparing. Anderson had the busted rib, whatever. But to think that somebody can get dominated, Conor, 3 out of those 4 rounds, but to say he has no chance, I mean, Anderson got dominated 5 rounds and pulled out a Hail Mary, and then what happens in the second fight?
I think that's a valid comparison.
Nate finished Conor in the second round, and then in the next fight, Conor won.
Fucked him up, yeah.
And I'm not saying Conor would do that to Khabib, because again, I'm not comparing Nate Diaz and Khabib. But what I am saying is that the people who say he stands no chance ever, I think that you just can't say that in this sport.
No, not especially not with his track record. I mean, he's literally already avenged one of his biggest losses. He avenged it right away. And you're right. I mean, I know you brought up the ribs and stuff, but Chael Anderson, in the second fight, Anderson was healthy and Chael dominated the first round. It happened again. It's just that, but the problem is the striker, they always start on the feet, which leads me to believe that if Conor worked on his cardio and did his thing and maybe didn't have a little bit of ring rust, that he could absolutely do something about it in the second fight, you know?
All right, so let's move on from the fight itself, because I'm sure all the Conor haters are hating our conversation right now if they haven't already turned it off. And we're not here to be Conor apologists. We're here to just give, our personal take on things. Khabib looked amazing in the fight. You can't take that away from him. You can't say anything otherwise. Even if you don't like the guy, there's nothing you can say about his performance inside the cage. Now, after the fight,
yikes.
What I don't so much want to say, I said what we thought on Twitter. We've talked about it. Everyone's talked about it, but I'm having a little trouble, and we try to be very even keel and shoot things down the middle on this podcast. If you listen to us, you know that. I'm having a hard time with these extremes that people are taking on this. Listen, you don't have to run to one side or the other and plant your flag and be unmoved. It's okay to feel mixed feelings about this. It's okay to land somewhere in the middle. If you love Khabib and he's your favorite fighter, great. But you don't have to follow him with blind allegiance. The same thing goes for Conor McGregor. If you're Muslim, if you're Irish, it does not matter. Call this what it is. This was terrible. It's not a good look for anyone. But at the same time, it's going to be the best thing to ever happen for Khabib, for Conor McGregor, and possibly for the UFC. So how do we process all of this?
Oh man, there's so much to it. So I said, obviously, the night of the fight, the everything goes down and it's a huge uproar. Everyone who's not paying attention immediately starts paying attention, and it's chaos. And the first thing I said to you is just obviously the rematch is going to be the biggest fight of all time, and it's good for business. Does it mean I have to like what happened? No, absolutely not. But we also spend a lot of time on this podcast talking about the health of the sport, what it needs. And in my opinion, we had that talk a couple months ago about it needing its next big villain. And it doesn't matter who that villain is for you. For a lot of people, it's Conor. There's a lot of people even before this fight that hated Conor. Now there's a lot of people that hate Khabib. And no matter what, now you have your villain. And that's all that matters. If you are getting so worked up on either side of this, you're getting worked. It's like pro wrestling. You're literally getting worked. The villain's there now for you, and that means you're going to care one way or the other when they fight again.
It's funny you say that. I hadn't really considered that. This is a really unique situation, actually, in combat sports, because normally there's a clear-cut good guy and a clear-cut bad guy. This is one of those situations almost like college football where you have your Ohio State and Michigan, and people loathe both of those teams, or they loathe one and love the other. And this is one of those unique situations where, yeah, there's villains on both sides and good guys on both sides. It really just depends on your personal perspective.
There's a lot more. Yeah, there's a lot more similarities than you would think with the two of them. I mean, every time you'd think thered be a reason why you should support one or the other, where it's like there's always like a Dylan Danis on one side that is just considered pretty widely regarded to just kind of be like a douchebag by a lot of people, to be honest. He's and then obviously we see what Khabib's team does. When you just kind of go through it, there's a lot of talk about like, oh, Conor taking like a money fight and doing anything for money against Floyd. Well, then look at some of the things Khabib's done for money with some of the shit going on in Russia. So like they have these similar paths. They both can be viewed as bad guys, but you just have to understand, no matter which side you lie on, that you're absolutely invested in a rematch. So they win ultimately.
Yeah, it's great. Again, I'm going to go back to what I said before introducing this. If you fall so heavily on one side, just look, like Tim said, just look at the similarities for a second. And there's no way that you can. When you look at the way, they accept money. When you look, even people are like, can't talk that way about Khabib's family. Can't talk that way about his religion. What we're really saying is Khabib has honor and loyalty. What was the thing that they said for years and years about Conor McGregor? He won't ditch his coach. Yep. He won't change gyms. He's loyal to his people in his corner, like Dylan Danis.
And Ireland.
They're the same, man. Yep. They do the same things.
I just think there's a difference, though, and people backing that up. Oh, he talked about his family. He talked about his country. There's a difference between, I get it, it's a form of disrespect, but there's a difference between selling a fight that's going to be the biggest fight, and the only reason Khabib is in this spot and getting possibly, if they stop withholding it, $2 million purse is because of Conor. The only reason, because he's selling this fight. He's not getting it because he's Khabib Nurmagomedov. Nobody, this is going to be a far stretch, but do you turn on the UFC to watch Khabib? No.
Well, I'm going to push back a little bit. I'm going to agree with you on 50% of that. And actually, I haven't listened to Fighter and the Kid in a long, long time, and I almost sent you guys a text. Actually listened because I wanted to know. I wanted to know what they had to say, and it actually wasn't that bad until Schaub said what you're saying right now. He said, Khabib isn't a draw. And I just, when a guy goes back to his country and gets a 10,000 person or whatever it was, reset 10 million, 10,000, I don't know what it was.
Did you hear the views in Russia alone? It was like on the whatever network it was on, because I don't think it's like pay-per-view over there. It was like 4 million views.
Yeah,
that's insane.
It's out of control. Look, Khabib is a draw, but I get what you're saying. Khabib's not getting a $2 million purse from Dana White and the UFC without Conor McGregor. That's now just a reality.
Now he will definitely be a draw.
He can.
Yeah.
Now whoever he fights next, because that's Schaub was saying too, if he fought Tony, nobody's really going to be paying attention. Bullshit.
Yeah, wrong.
People are going to be watching Khabib, trust me, no matter who he fights. But what I did agree with you on is the first part of what you were saying. Look, it's not okay to excuse behavior because of ignorance. Mm-hmm. It's not okay to excuse behavior because of principle or honor. You cannot do that. And I don't want to use extreme examples, but there are a lot of people that have done things, and I'm a Christian. There's a lot of people that have done things in the name of fill in that blank that you could not convince me or anyone else is okay just because they've done it in the name of something they believe in or something they stand by. And anyone from America can think of multiple examples of what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. And I'm not comparing the two.
Right.
But what I'm saying is that doesn't justify his actions and his retaliation. And by the way, everyone's saying Conor talked about Khabib's family, talked about this. That's great. Khabib had his chance to settle that, and he did. Khabib attacking Dylan Dennis has nothing to do with what Conor McGregor said about Khabib. And then now they're trying to say that Dylan was saying it, but there's the video from behind Dylan Dennis of Khabib's teammate talking to him, patting him on the back as he's going in the cage. Then Dylan Dennis pushes him, and then Khabib sees that and jumps out. And I don't fault Khabib for defending what he saw. He looks out of the cage. He's heated. He sees Dylan Dennis push his teammate. He wants to go defend him. That's loyalty. That's great. But it's crazy that I'm saying this. I'm wanting to ask a professional fighter with a ton of adrenaline and rage who's already pissed at someone who sees one of his family members, teammates being hurt to take a second and think before he acts. That's insane. But it needs to happen at that level because you just simply can't do what he did. It's not okay, and we cannot excuse it as okay. You can defend his motives and all of that, but you cannot defend the action itself. And it doesn't matter if it's Conor, if it's Khabib, if it's Anderson Silva, if it's Chris Weidman. It doesn't matter who it is. That can't happen.
Well, that's the thing, too. We don't have to... See, that's the thing. Like, we may be against what he did, but that doesn't mean... And we don't. We have not... The three of us, when this has come up, we haven't asked for him to be stripped of his title. I haven't asked for anyone to be released. Do I think it's a problem that people that are not in the fight jumped in the cage? Yeah, that's a huge fucking problem.
I think that's honestly, I think that's the worst of this. Yeah,
exactly. But the bottom line is... I may not be asking for any of that, but that doesn't mean I have to like it. Just like I didn't like when Conor threw the dolly. And, you know, if you don't believe it, go listen to that episode. It's out there.
Piece of shit. Hot garbage.
Like, we were not happy about that. We're not like Conor apologists. Like, we admit when he fucks up. Khabib fucked up. It's going to be great for business that he fucked up, though. And if you don't understand that, you're just being naive. Like,
I'm going to say one more thing because I'm glad you said we accept and admit that he fucked up. And I want to say this. You said we weren't asking him to be stripped. I did send out a tweet in the midst of that interaction that said Khabib should be DQ'd. I did. Okay. I said that. Me, Taylor.
Okay.
I'm going to go after.
That's not stripping, though.
After I've cooled off from all that I don't believe that anymore. Okay. I was in the wrong to tweet that. That was in the heat of the moment. Now, let me tell you why that's important. The main thing that I've taken away from this whole thing is that Khabib is still justifying his actions.
Yes.
I just wish he would say, I had my reasons, but what I did was wrong. It's when you try to blame, because he's pointing the finger. It's Conor's fault I jumped out of the cage. It's Conor's fault I did this. It's Conor's fault people jumped in the cage. Stop playing the blame game. Take responsibility. You can still stand on principle. You can still stand behind your motives, but just take responsibility for your actions. That's all I ask. Dude, it's the same reason we don't like a guy like John Jones. You can mess up and mess up and mess up and mess up. You can mess up 500 times. And if on 501 you say, look, you know what? I accept full responsibility for this and every other thing that I did, and it wasn't right. I'm back on board. I'm 100%. With that's what we do in America, man. We forgive the worst of the worst.
That's humans in general. We're all fallible, and we fuck up professionally in our personal lives. And all we do is say, just take responsibility, because we all make mistakes. But if the next day you're like, hey, man, I screwed up. I was a little bit out of line. I'm sorry about that. Or I made a mistake at work. If you accept responsibility, it changes everything. Look at people like Conor when they lose. The fighters that even Dominic Cruz, when he gets dominated by Garbrandt, stands there like a man and takes it and is like, man, he was the better man tonight. I fucking sucked. Like, we respect people that do that. And so I really do think that if the past couple days, Khabib was coming out being like, look, that got out of hand. I screwed up. I will not do that again. We would be a little bit more forgiving. I'd be like, all right, he fucked up in the heat of the biggest pay-per-view of all time. But he's not doing that.
Like I said, I probably would have done the same thing, man. I can't sit here and say with all that adrenaline and all that stuff going on and you see that, you're just reacting. To ask somebody to pause in that moment and reflect on the situation is kind of crazy.
I mean, it's no different than a football game. Like if I say, we're on offense and my buddy Jared, one of my best friends, he gets tackled in the backfield, but they're talking trash to him and whatnot. The first thing I'm doing is I'm running up, pushing them away. It's like, back up.
Yeah.
Like we're getting lined up for. So I get it too. I get the adrenaline, but it's one of those things like it, like you said, it happens, man, but accept it. And for me, it was, he started to accept it a little bit. I don't know if you watched the post-fight press conference with him.
Not with him.
He apologized for it and whatever, and talked about how his dad's gonna smash him when he gets home and whatnot. It was starting to be like, okay, he's gonna take ownership and let this play out. The next day, he sent out a picture on like Dana White's BMW saying, "Where's my money?"
He was trying to make a joke about it, and I get it, but it's too much. Now he's saying, you cut my teammate, I'm out too. Which, okay, you want to threaten the UFC, that's fine.
And defending your teammate, though, the teammate that hopped the fence, that had nothing to do with the fight, he hopped the fence
I guess
and snuffed Conor twice.
That's one of those, too, where I don't know. If we were in a fight in the street, I wouldn't care what you did, man. You can hit somebody in the back of the head. You can hit somebody with a baseball bat. I don't care what you do to them if we're in a street fight. But if we were in that situation and you jumped in and hit a guy, I'd be like, hey, man, Zach.
Well, I mean,
cool, man.
So, I mean, because that's the problem when you start getting into this is like, where is the line? Because I assume these are the people that jumped the cage. I assume they walked out with him, correct?
Yeah, they were professional fighters.
Okay, so where's the line, though? Because if that's okay, then is it okay if his friends and family are sitting cage side and they hop the cage too to defend their friend or a teammate?
I don't know.
Where's the line? And then so now if you're a really big Conor or Khabib fan that have known them for years, can you now jump the cage and go after a fighter? Like, that's the problem with this. And I know I don't want to speak in absolutes, but that's why they have to be very careful with how they handle that portion. Because Khabib jumping out of the cage and going after people that are a part of the UFC is one thing. That's fucked up, but look, people do it all the time. Conor's done it in sort of a joking fashion, but he's jumped it and gone after Aldo and his team.
Okay, so here's the thing with that, though, and people were using that against Conor.
That was set up before.
He jumped the fence. He jumped the fence to sell a fight with Aldo. Didn't even come
Aldo knew.
close.
And it was like,
Aldo knew.
That's why he's laughing.
Yes.
And then they're like, oh, he jumps the fence and pushed the ref. I'm sorry, no. He jumped the fence to celebrate with his teammate, which he shouldn't have done because it was still like under review. Like, okay, what happened?
We came down on that too.
We came down on that.
Exactly.
Yep.
And the ref said, get the fuck out of here. And he was like, what are you talking about? And then he pushed him. It wasn't there he didn't hop the fence just to push the ref in the octagon. That's not what happened. So to say that Conor does the same thing, to me, it's completely different.
Because that was the part where I started to feel disgusted. Because I was fine when he jumped the cage and went after Conor's team. I was like, whatever, that shit happens. What a shit show. Weird way to end the night. When people jumped in the cage and started going after Conor, I don't give a fuck who threw the first punch or how it played out. That is just scary then going forward, the standard it sets for people thinking. Because you gotta understand, man, people are at these events.
How easy was it for him to jump the fence? 2 of them.
But some of these people have known these fighters for years. They come and travel to see their friends or family, and if they're drunk and they're seeing something they don't like, they might jump the cage themselves. That's a dangerous precedent.
Hey, look at other sports, man. Somebody jumps on the baseball diamond or the soccer pitch just to run around like a moron. They get straight up tackled by security, put in jail.
Yeah.
That is just a random person. You jump on stage at a rock concert, go try to touch the lead singer.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, you get your ass kicked and thrown off stage, literally.
I crowd surfed at Metallica and I stepped in the wrong direction of the exit and I got yanked back. Like just a step in the wrong direction. Mind you, there was an exit that way, but because this one was closer, they said, fuck no, this way. Yeah. And they were pissed. Man.
When we were at, I think you were with me. We were at that Disturbed, Taproot, and Chevelle show.
Gorgeous. Music as a Weapon?
Yeah, the Music as a Weapon. The lead singer of Taproot jumped into the crowd and was moshing and stuff, but as he was going back to the stage, it went to touch him or what. I don't even know what I went to do. And security was like, boom, right in my chest. Like,
out.
Get the back. Like, okay.
Well, and that's my
enough.
exact point is just, look, that instance, because it is his teammates that are, credential, they were allowed to be backstage. They're allowed to be down there. That's one thing, and it's still really, really bad, but the line now moves and what's okay and what's not, because again, people are going to get really confused that have known Khabib or Conor for a long time and think they can get involved now, and then where does it stop? It just scares you as a fan of the sport, Because look, short term, we can kind of even segue a little bit right now. Short term, business is fucking good for the UFC, and to be honest with you, to lighten the mood a little bit, it feels really fucking good to get to say that as a fight fan, because 2018 has been really difficult, especially the first half of the year was fucking brutal, but now, man, business is good. I mean, the rest of the year is kick-ass. It's been really weird how we've gotten there. Some big-time fuck-ups.
Yikes.
But I mean, man, how can you not be excited about the cards through the rest of 2018?
Okay, so let's talk about it. We'll put that aside. Put the Conor.
I just want to say one more thing.
Okay,
I think we're all on the same page here. And anyone who's listening, we don't want Khabib to be stripped. We don't want him to be held out on his purse. We don't care about that. It just just to push that aside, like Khabib here, I don't think we want anything drastic like that to happen to him.
And I'm glad you stopped this for a second, because before we go to the rest of the year, just real quick, what do you guys want next for Khabib? Who do you want him to fight next? Do you have an opinion? Should maybe rematch somebody else?
I don't think he's going to fight anybody but Conor. But, I mean, you got to fight Tony.
What do you want? You want Tony?
I mean, do we try to set up that fight? Listen, normally I would say, okay, we're going to set up that fight for a sixth time and it not happen and be like, nah, I'm never going to set up that fight again. But now, after the performance that Tony did, only 5 months after he tore his ACL, a major surgery, and then Khabib doing what he did, that fight is fantastic. It was fantastic before. It's only bigger now.
Here's what I think you do. I think you have Khabib fight somebody like Nate, and then Tony fight somebody else. And then at the last second, when they show up and they actually make it to the card, you switch it on the fans. Because that's the only way those two are going to make it to the same event.
But is that what you want?
If they don't think they're fighting each other. Yes, that is what I want.
I agree. I think if I had the old Twitter, if I had my phone with me Saturday night, I would have said immediate rematch. You got to do it. But as time's gone on, it's like the answer is Tony Ferguson. Because it's the fight we all want to see. And again, if I'm sorry to always bring up the business aspect of this, but if you're into the business side of this, look, Conor and Khabib is a rough matchup, and anything involving Conor is always good for business, right? Maybe you just need to, first of all, Tony Khabib is a phenomenal fight, and then what's the worst thing that happens? Tony beats him, and now you got a guy who will stand up with Conor, and Conor is just a god on the feet. So I think it's good across the board to do that, and if Khabib beats Tony, it only makes him bigger. And then maybe give Conor some time to fucking work on some shit. Man,
how awesome is that weight class?
Oh, my God. It's out of control.
Especially with Nate there.
Yeah.
Nate, Conor, Khabib, Tony.
Poirier. I mean, the whole show.
Gaethje.
It's amazing.
Gosh.
So I do, just so we can move on from it, but I think we all agree. I mean,
well, let me ask this. Since you ask who we want to see him fight, who do you think has the best chance to beat Khabib? Or give me two people you think that actually have a shot.
I mean, for me, I can't say anybody other than Tony, just because Tony's resilient. He's good on the ground. I just think, I mean, I'm not saying he'd be the favorite. I just think he's got the best chance.
Best shot.
Until somebody shows us otherwise.
You agree, Z-Pain?
I like Tony for that spot. If he has the best shot, I'm not saying he would win. I think he has the best shot. I think you need to get a wrestler in there. A wrestler in there that has
Kevin Lee.
I don't think
Kevin Lee gets worked.
There's a lot of people online that think Kevin Lee's the potential kryptonite because he can stand with him and then he's got the power and shit. So I'm not worried.
See, I'm not actually. Khabib. We're gonna go back into it. The Khabib surprised me a bit on the feet. I understand he was getting tagged, but he did tag Conor, regardless of what anyone.
Well, that's
think
the thing
happened.
though, is that Kevin Lee is foundation in wrestling. He's not gonna have to be worried about the takedown.
I just think isn't Kevin smaller than Conor?
Kevin Lee's gigantic.
He is?
He struggled to make weight.
He's probably, he's probably bigger
I'm comparing
than
him to Tony, and Tony's a...
What about your boy, T-City?
No.
You don't think T-City has a shot?
I think
With that jiu-jitsu off his back?
So he's coming up? Or
He would be coming up. He's 145.
He's smaller.
That's what I'm saying. Like
he's a big 145, man.
He is big. 145.
Big 145.
I think the jiu-jitsu. I don't know if jiu-jitsu is the key. I think the wrestling would be the key. Like it's different.
That's fair.
I know it's.
Well, why are we saying Tony? Because what's Tony's wrestling?
That's what I'm saying. I think Tony, his stand-up game is so like it's like of Conor, but he actually has the ability to be on his back and be comfortable, where Conor doesn't.
I think that's the thing.
Whereas like T-City, like he's comfortable on his back, but is he like, and he can maneuver stuff, but I don't think Khabib gives you those options. That's my only thing.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I think there's this is why it's a really exciting time.
I'd love to see that fight though.
I think right away with Khabib, there's 3 exciting fights immediately between Tony, Kevin Lee, and Conor because they all break different.
I'm glad
problems.
you didn't say Nate.
How about GSP?
GSP?
If they go up,
I mean, he
no,
would come
155.
Can he go down to 155?
Yeah, they said he was trying to make 155.
I think for me, GSP would beat him. I mean, well, which GSP are we getting? Rusty GSP?
I've seen a few people say GSP would get worked by Khabib.
Fuck off.
In wrestling?
Fuck off.
Just in the
Just
fight.
in general?
Yeah.
Well, he's never gotten worked ever, so how can you say that? I mean, you can't. I know you're allowed to have an opinion, but
sure.
All right, I'm going T Wood here. Sorry, if we're going 170.
We're just changing weight class.
No, yeah, if we're going 170,
no. T Wood cannot make 155.
How about the division that we said is so awesome, and we're all picking different weight classes?
Picking out of the weight class.
Idiots. But
okay, fair enough. All right, let's
the rest
talk.
Of the year.
Let's talk about Black Beast.
Man,
my balls is hot.
Well, this is so we are full disclosure, huge Black Beast fans.
Oh, I don't know. Well, if they don't know that by now, that's a problem.
But this is like like my obsession with Chris Lieben back in the day, where you're just like, this is your like guy you love to watch fight, and you're always worried he's gonna get knocked out or lose, and you're just like, look, there's certainly a ceiling on what this guy can do. But then Black Beast shocks you and weasels his way into a title shot because he wins at the perfect time in the perfect way and says the right shit.
His interviews, I know some people are gonna, they hate on the Ronda Rousey stuff and whatnot. Like that, it's classic. But the stuff that everybody loved his post-fight interview. Everybody. There's not a single person that at least is online that didn't love that.
So I was listening to a podcast and there was a comedian on there, and he was talking about, he's not even a UFC fan, but he watches the major ones. And he literally said his biggest takeaway from that pay-per-view is he's like, this Derek Lewis guy. He's like, the guy comes out, looks like shit for 2 rounds, and then knocks the guy out, and they offer him a title shot, and he stands there and goes, I need fucking cardio. And he's like, I love the honesty. And he goes, not only am I going to order 230, he goes, because he's from the East Coast, he goes, I think I'm going to go because of it. And you're like, bingo. Look at that.
I mean, not to go back to our previous subject, but that's what we love, man. Just be honest. Just be forthright.
We're so forgiving. Because we were so frustrated.
Title shot. What the fuck?
He came off the worst heavyweight fight in history.
Yep.
And then he put on a snoozer for 2.5 rounds, and with 2 punches,
18 seconds started it.
And a good post-fight interview, he gets offered a title shot. It is unbelievable.
And
but
MSG.
We love, listen, if people haven't turned it off by now, they're going to turn it off after this comment. Tim, you and I were big Rashad Evans fans.
Yes, we were.
And one of the reasons we liked Rashad is because Rashad was really honest. In every interview he had, he was extremely honest about his capabilities, about his screw-ups, about everything. He was an honest fighter. I love that in Derek Lewis. You don't need to put on airs. You don't need to stand on pride and principle. You are a gigantic heavyweight man and can beat up 99.99% of the population. It's okay to be like, hey, man, my cardio sucks.
Yep.
Because guess what? Everybody watching knows that. So there's no harm in admitting it. Just makes you more, endearing to the crowd.
Well, and when he brings shit up, I actually believe him. He's not like Tito Ortiz. Like, this time the back didn't come up. So, like, when he does have a fight like the Ngannou fight where he says his back is jacked up, I believe him because he's just brutally honest. He'll tell you when he's just terrible out there. That's one of the bright spots, man. This is what the sport's all about. I mean, you're probably going to mention it in the end, but I mean, look, we want to do him. We're going to do him next. Like, he's going to be the next episode, which we're super excited to do because if people are excited about him now, wait till they hear some of the shit he's been through and done. Crazy story, awesome guy, and just that's sweet that he doubled his Instagram followers in one night or something.
More than
overnight.
Yep.
And let's not forget, like, he's been through like a lot, and we'll definitely dive into. I hope I'm here for that actually, but you'll definitely dive into that. But like, let's not forget, just a year ago, like he was being talked about all over the place about saving people in Houston. Like
it's gonna be awesome.
Over 100 people picking him up in his truck. Like he's just a loyal guy.
He's a lot of
him and Trade of Truth. Shout out Houston.
All
right. Anyway,
no,
sorry.
but he's everything he's everything that's right about the sport. So look, it's the scary stuff. Business is really good, but that's the old. They're certainly robbing Peter to pay Paul thing. They are screwing around with main events left and right. They're jeopardizing shit. But look, I mean, just one layer below. Because you go, what if he beats Cormier, then you lose Cormier, Brock, and all that shit. But if Derek Lewis wins the heavyweight title, they're going to send Brock right after him because that's Brock's best chance to win the heavyweight title, which is the best thing that could happen
and
to him.
And DC's still got Jones.
He's got Jones, so they're fine.
Mm-hmm.
So he's going to lose to Gustafsson.
Well. I know I mentioned in a text in our group that I think Curtis Blades is getting screwed here. And let me just... Because my thumbs hurt from this weekend. So here's what I didn't say.
You've been in some battles online. Let's just get that out
like
there.
63 different arguments.
Not called the scrappy one for no reason.
He's very scrappy.
Here's why I think Curtis is getting screwed here. I understand, we always talk about like, Gaethje's young. We wanted to see Eddie Alvarez win, like we want to see that. Like he's going to be time. Who knows with Derek Lewis, how long he's going to last, what you said, Taylor. And it's like, but for me is, you're coming off of the worst fight ever, let's say, in the UFC. And possibly the most boring, I guess, when I guess maybe that it kind of sucks because the potential behind that fight was so high. Maybe it makes it a little worse. And then you're coming off of Snoofest for 3 rounds, but the last 18 seconds you knock somebody out, get a title shot. Let's not forget, Curtis Blades has been finishing people, and just at 225 finished Alistair Overeem in spectacular fashion, and like has been nothing but good for this sport. Like I understand everyone now, Derek Lewis is a fan favorite. He's becoming like the cowboy, which I can see why they'd give it to him. I just think Curtis is getting screwed because I think Curtis is going to end up fighting probably someone like Stipe. And
well, I mean, look, if he beats Ngannou, he's probably next in line. He's fighting Ngannou. So
he's fighting him again. He's fighting him again then.
Right.
We saw him a couple years ago.
Chicago.
So they are fighting. I didn't know.
They are.
That.
I mean, that's a main event in the next month or two. And if he wins that,
I didn't know that. Jeez.
I think he takes that stage at the headline if he beats Ngannou and is like, I'm fucking next. To me, at that point, then he's got a gripe.
Yeah, that's what I was telling you, Zach. In the
I didn't know that fight was already made.
Well, no,
so
that's fine. It's just he's young, man. He's got time. He's primed. He's poised. Even before the Derek Lewis thing, we thought that DC was going to be fighting Brock, and I said the same thing then. It's okay. Just bide your time, and in a year or two, this heavyweight division is going to shake out. DC is going to be gone. Brock's going to be gone. Overeem, Derek Lewis, a lot of these guys are going to be out of there. And then it's going to be Curtis Blades' show at that point. It really is. It's going to be him, Stipe, maybe Ngannou if he comes back. It's going to be like the heavyweight division was 2 or 3 years ago where there's like 3 guys and that's it, basically.
Well, to your exact point right now, look, if you don't have a personality, it doesn't matter what you do in the cage because look at how Stipe is getting passed over right now. They desperately wanted to do a heavyweight title fight at Madison Square Garden, and they didn't even call him. And he's begging for it on no notice. Blades should use this year or two as these guys get phased out to build up his personality. And again, that's what will sell him because people don't know him yet. Yes, is he beating people in devastating fashion? Yep, but he's got that wrestling base, which irritates some people. It's a big turnoff for the casual fan. What do you hear a lot even when Khabib's in there? Who's a megastar? Is like, why are they laying on the ground? What's going on right now? This is boring. Blades is going to need to develop that personality. Get on that mic if he beats Ngannou and let people fucking hear it, man.
Mm-hmm. And he can be himself. You don't have to be Conor McGregor. Right. You can be yourself, but you gotta show yourself, like you say all the time. Yep. You gotta do the Stone Cold thing.
Your personality times, on 11.
I mean,
personality on 11.
When you look at the biggest stars, like they are themselves. Maybe not Ronda because we felt maybe she puts on like a facade, basically.
I think her shit started to show in the end who she really was.
So, but then like Derek Lewis shows himself, Conor is himself, DC is himself, Brock Lesnar, like the big stars, even Nate Diaz, the Diaz brothers. They are themselves. You might not like some of the shit they do, but like they're stars because of it. They are themselves. Be yourself, and you can be a star.
Yep.
By the way, I just want to not get too philosophical or break it down too much, but I just want to give a little more appreciation for Derek Lewis's personality. He's so refreshing because he brings comedy into a sport that's so deadly serious and devastating that he's always just able to joke and lighten the mood when everybody else is so damn serious. And even your trash talkers like Chael, who it's a little bit tongue-in-cheek, he's still trying to make it a serious thing, even when people kind of know it's put on a little bit. Derek Lewis, he's sarcastic, he's funny, he's honest. It's just he can even talk crap, and it's still it's endearing because it's done in a Derek Lewis sort of way.
It was like getting lost in the mix, a little behind the scenes here. I mean, it was an absolute fucking carnival at the end of that fight because we had a bunch of people that had parlays going. And so they had Derek Lewis. Yeah. And so, 20, 30 seconds to go, the parlays are being written off. People are placing secondary bets, chasing their money. Yes. There's an absolute shit show. Then he knocks him out. Everyone's freaking out because their bets are back on. Now we got people with multiple parlays that are alive. Everyone's freaking out. Taylor, you're hitting Twitter, and I'm like, hey guys, his fucking pants are off, by the way. Like, look at the TV, his pants are off. And everyone's like, what is going on right now? It was a shit show. Incredible.
It's perfect.
It's the ultimate
absolutely
black beast.
What MMA needs.
And you're like, oh, maybe his pants tore or something. Nope, I'm just too fucking hot. Balls are hot, and his pants are off in the octagon. Incredible.
Let's not forget, too, like, this is going to be, if it's not, I think DC does what DC does. I think the difference of skill there is very unmatched, but it is going to be an entertaining press conference because DC, I mean, they don't have beef, quote unquote, but it's like one of those things when it was a press conference for DC versus Stipe, they met in the back. And Derek Lewis started giving DC some shit, and DC's coming out laughing, and he's like, "Yeah, I thought he was gonna like knock me out," and he's like looking over his shoulder, and they ask, "Hey, Derek Lewis, what's your problem with DC?" They laugh, and he's like, "Man, he disrespected Popeye's chicken a couple years ago."
So good. And he makes fun of the dance from the video.
He makes fun of it. He's like doing the dance with him and
That's
stuff.
what I mean. He's even making his opponents laugh.
This is fun. I don't like the fight necessarily, but this is going to be fun.
You know what though? We shit a lot on the booking and the promoting in the UFC. This on its own is pure gold because Derek Lewis has a lot of limitations. He's a heavy underdog in this. He was 20 seconds away from losing again and not really mattering on the main event level for a long, long time, if ever again because of his age. They're just catching lightning in a bottle right now. He did it on the Conor night. He did that in front of everybody, doubles his followers. Everybody loves it. You desperately need a main event. You got Cormier sitting around. Do it.
You know what? And it doesn't matter anymore because like I said, Derek Lewis is that cowboy where you are the fan favorite. No matter what happens, people are still going to like you.
Let me ask you a really weird question because you said they caught lightning in a bottle and they needed a main event, so to speak. They booked this before the public knew about Poirier's injury.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think they knew? Do you think the UFC knew that Poirier was injured and they weren't announcing it?
I do not. I think that there was such a backlash to that Shevchenko main event. I think that because they made that title fight and no one wanted anything to do with it, and I think as soon as they saw the public's reaction, they were probably working behind the scenes.
Because didn't the Poirier news come the day after?
It came after. I don't think they knew because
it just seems odd that they would rush to book that after putting Shevchenko.
Well, you have to rush because you literally have 30 days to work with.
I understand that.
Here's why I think they didn't know about Poirier is because if they knew about Poirier going into that, they would have kept Shevchenko on the card. She would have been a co-main. Because now you lost Shevchenko, and now you're losing Nate Diaz and Poirier. So I don't think they knew about it, but I mean, they're scrambling.
You know what? On a side note, what the Derek Lewis run reminds me of, because look, Derek Lewis that's a big boy, and he really could knock out Cormier. Puncher's chance, absolutely. it reminds me of the Forrest Griffin run when Forrest was champion. And like, if he wins the belt, you'll know it's only a matter of time before Lewis loses.
He's not breaking the heavyweight belt record. That's for sure.
No, but it's a fun run. You know, Forrest Griffin was good for the company when he had the belt. Derek Lewis would be the same way. He'd be funny. It'd be a fun 6 months and just see what happens. And if he's a gatekeeper and holds it until like a Brock or somebody could potentially beat him, even that's good for them. So I actually think it's a brilliant move. Do I feel bad for Stipe? Yup. But with what they're doing with Jones and Gustafsson, that's brilliant and perfect. And I just...
Do they have a date for that now?
December 29th.
God,
so it's on.
I actually don't... I shouldn't say I don't feel bad for Stipe. I feel for him, but it's a similar situation to the Curtis... You can always make, to the Curtis Blades thing, you can always make an argument for this guy deserves it, that guy deserves it. But like I said, if you're at that level, if you're at the Curtis Blades level, at the Stipe level, you're one injury away from being right back in there. You're one fight away from being right back in that main
And with
event.
heavyweights, it happens all the time.
Yeah, so I just think we talk about the 6 degrees of Conor McGregor. Look no further than Derek Lewis being literally 1 minute away from losing and being written off completely for 2 of the worst fights in heavyweight history to being in the main event 1 minute later. Stipe just needs to, and Curtis Blades, they just need to realize that in this sport, and especially in that division, you can literally be 1 minute away from being in the spotlight again.
Look, Stipe had every opportunity when he was on that run. He had the mic at the end of a lot of shows to talk shit, I'm the greatest of all time, this or that. He chose to stay very quiet and be his usual. He did like the blue collar, just a regular man thing. And it didn't really translate. And people didn't really get behind it. The buy rates weren't there. When you get that chance, you know who else did that one time? Tony Ferguson. He had one of his biggest wins. I can't remember who he beat. And he chose not to talk any shit. And he got criticized for it. And look at him now. And he's building that momentum. Because now after his exciting fights, he's talking shit. And by the way, in the middle of that shit talking, he's also telling his story, that he's cutting things like alcohol out of his life. And for people like me that watched him on Tough and remember what a douchebag he was when he was hammered, he was a dick. I'm going, oh, he's changing his life. Maybe I should give this guy another chance. And he's making me think these things through. And I'm actually going, you know what? I do want to see him fight Khabib. I do want this guy to get his chance. And meanwhile, Stipe is getting robbed, who never showed his personality. And I'm like, well, I don't really care.
I mean, look at who a lot of people consider the greatest of all time currently. Not us, but who else is quiet? Mighty Mouse. No one gives a shit.
It's true.
And we haven't heard anything about 125 since he's lost. You can't. I don't know.
I said it earlier. You can be who you are. You don't need to be fake. You don't need to be someone you're not. But like you said, just be yourself on 11. And for Tony, it was just telling his story. It was amping it up a little bit. I can think of 2 people not in the UFC that were well on their way to being written off just because of their personality or not having the huge buy rates. Rory McDonald and Gegard Mousasi.
Oh, yeah.
And I know Rory's big because of the GSP thing in Canada, but I'm just talking about here in the U.S. and worldwide.
There's something to that, too. When he became the American Psycho and really started doing all that crazy shit.
Yes.
That's when people really got behind him.
Yes.
When he showed some personality.
And Mousasi is still the quiet Dutchman.
I just gave him
but
Stephen Bonner's nickname. He's a Canadian Psycho.
Yes, please.
I just a Stephen Bonner plug for all the OG fans out there.
You already mentioned Forrest Griffin. You don't get to mention Stephen Bonner.
Too tough.
No, you can't do
that.
You
said Lieben too. I mean,
I'm just dating the shit out of myself.
No, we're just missing Couture and Pat
This is
Barry.
what happens because you were talking about how you're out of the loop right now, Zach, because you're getting close in the pregnancy. Just wait till my old ass is age with like a 3-year-old, and then you just reference Tough 1 all the time and shit and music from the 90s. It's over.
There was that 90s show on Netflix. I'm so close to watching it.
And didn't it get I think it got disconnected, but when disconnected, it didn't get renewed.
Oh, really?
And it broke I think so. And it broke my heart because I was like, oh, this looks great. It's all our old shit, nostalgia. Naturally, no one gave a shit about it.
Was it bullshit that did the nostalgia thing?
Probably.
I feel like they did a thing on
I don't remember because I'm too old.
Nostalgia and how it's just complete crap. But I love it.
Yeah. So, but no. Anyways,
okay, we shouldn't end on 90s trivia.
No,
let's end on something else.
Just in general, I just think look, it was a weird night for the UFC. But I do think as a fan, you got to be super excited about the next 3 months. And look, we suffer through these 3 to 6 month spans that are fucking miserable. And we've got a 3 month span now to be really excited about. And on top of that, and we can kind of briefly talk about that 3 month span, but just know that you have things like Brock Lesnar on the horizon even after that, and potentially a Conor return after that. And now Nate, who's no longer booked after that. So this could be like a really good 5 to 6 months.
And I think that's something maybe we talked about it last December. And my biggest thing was they stacked these last like 4 cards so much that in the beginning of the year is shit. I think maybe we like, it sucks, but maybe we accept that. Like maybe it's like, okay, now let's get excited for Christmas because around this time these cards are going to be phenomenal.
It's almost like an MMA off season every year.
Yeah.
Like when you hit that 4 to 6 months, you're like, look, the sport's just not on right now. Essentially, if you really want to see some fights, they're there, but give it 3 months, it'll be back.
I've been thinking a lot, and totally off topic, I guess. Well, it's not off topic, it's MMA, but I've been thinking a lot about like MMA fantasy, like not just picking your fighters, but having a fighter. Oh man, I got some ideas, but we'll go over that off.
Wow.
That'll be another. No, let's save it for a different QD because
Yeah,
we've
for
talked
sure.
about MMA fantasy on this podcast. So
I think it'd be a lot of fun.
But do you guys have a fight you're most excited for the rest of this year now? With the
now that Mousasi and Rory is gone, no.
Take the fedora off, you fucking
Is that
hipster.
my hipster
Every
reference?
time. Literally the
Hey
worst.
man, I am a huge fan of both
He
of those
is.
fighters. Come on.
I know, but dude,
I'm just kidding.
Bellator
All right.
is tough to get a hold
I
of.
like-
right?
In all seriousness, Tito Chuck. Wait, no.
Oh
Or
my
is it
god, I
Chael and
forgot
Fedor,
that fight
and it's
is
just
again.
so
No, did you see the
gimmicky
Tito
and-
Chuck promos?
Yeah,
Uh,
that's
Like
brutal.
on the green screen?
Tito, it's not Chuck throwing
rotating-
those bombs. Oof. Bellator's got some work to do, man. God. That's rough.
That rotating platform killed me.
I watched that like 70 times. I was like, what's happening right now?
You know, I saw some of the trash talk, and it's. I feel like it's two old guys in a retirement hold talking shit about
Did I just get us on a full-blown Tito
Oh, yeah.
Chuck
Like,
conversation?
Tito shit talking is the best.
Like
It's
they're
the
out
best.
they're out back like playing shuffleboard and getting pissed off at each other. Like
So the UFC puts together this incredible 3 months with super fights galore, and we're on Tito Chuck 18.
I'm gonna say so for the
It's not even Bellator. It's like, isn't it like fucking?
Yeah, it's Golden Boy.
Yeah, Golden Boy. Even better.
Even worse.
it's I think the 3 fights that are coming up with Holloway, T City, Gustafsson, Jones, and Nunes and Cyborg. I'm excited for all of them. I'm really excited to see. Oh man, considering that it's widely considered the greatest fight of all time, I'm really excited to see Gustafsson. Jones.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, me too.
Because as a Jones hater, because again, Jones is the villain.
Well,
for
hold
me.
on. Bigger picture here. As a Sweden lover,
Whoop! I love Gustafsson. I love it. Well, so that's where I was going with this. As someone who hates Jones and loves Gustafsson, this is like that when Cormier and Jones were supposed to meet that first time when Jones returned and they got fucked up, and then he fought OSP, was it?
Yeah.
And looked like shit. I'm sitting here going like, hopefully Jones has ring rust and Gustafsson beats him, and then we get.
let's not
fucking
forget
amazing
Gus is on
trilogy.
ring rust too now.
How dare you? There's no such thing as ring rust for him. But he's been a little bit more active than Jones, but I still think Jones has been through so much
Yeah.
that this is the time to catch him if you're going to catch him.
Yeah, and it's being a T City fan, like I'm super excited for that fight too. But man, I'm ready
just
for
so
I'm ready
we
for
don't need to
round
spend 20
2.
minutes on, but I'm just so worried about Holloway's health. Like I don't like all the articles.
I didn't want
with
to,
depression.
And him
go
being
out-
so young.
I didn't
too,
want to go
with
out
it,
on a
so-
negative note, but I was going to ask you, out of those 3 fights, which one do you think is the most likely to not happen? Because
Oh,
I'm
I
kind of
mean,
worried
yeah.
about Cyborg
Oh.
Nunes not happening.
Oh, I'm not worried about
just
that.
what Cyborg's weight cut or something.
I don't know,
It's
not
at-
even that.
Is it at
I just-
145?
Yeah.
I feel
Yeah.
like it's just too good to happen.
Yeah.
I feel like we can't get that many good things in this sport.
That's true. Yeah, we can't do that because my inclination right now is to go, which fight's going to fall off? Like you
Yes,
don't want to go out
But
on
you
a
don't want
negative.
to. Yeah, you don't want to go out on a negative. But you got to feel like
No,
those 3 aren't going to come to fruition.
I think the one that would fall off would be Max and T City because they're both coming off dropping out of a card due to injury. So
Yeah, and whatever is going on with Max during these cuts is
Yeah.
not good, man. It's so scary.
I just hope he's been taking care of himself this summer, and like
I
getting
just-
after it.
I just really wish. I wish for once we could look at the bigger picture and just have him drop his title, move up a weight class, move him to the front of the line. Like, I know sure he'll have to fight once or twice before he gets a shot, whatever, but like pay him well, compensate him like he would have been paid as champion. Find a way to do that. I know he gets pay-per-view points, whatever. Pay him like a champion to move up because I don't want to see him kill himself.
You got bigger money fights in that division.
Right.
Max
exactly.
Holloway, Nate Diaz.
And he's got history with, people like Conor and stuff. He's got history.
Max Conor, Max
The only
Nate.
reason I'd be opposed to him moving to 155 because it took me so fucking long to distinguish Tony Ferguson and Max Holloway. I don't know why.
You.
It's the wings. It's the goddamn angel wings.
Dare
man.
you? That's probably racist. I'm just kidding.
Okay, now you're taking
Here we go.
road.
We're going back to episode like 4 here. Everything was racist.
Don't you bring that up?
All right. Well, that seems like a good place to wrap it up. Zach is back. He's as racist as ever.
Okay. But he's going to be out probably.
That's going to be the
Yeah.
damn clip to open up the episode. And
Yeah,
it's just
there you
like,
go.
Oh, yeah, who's this guy?
So your pregnant wife's feet are probably hurting from standing in line. So you better go get.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I
Get
probably,
that.
who knows? Like, I'm definitely going to have my hands full here pretty soon.
Yeah.
So
So Zach will be visiting the podcast when he can.
We'll take the reins on Black Beast
Yeah.
here.
So if Zach's your favorite host on this show,
Which,
just bear with us. He'll
if
be
I
back.
am, there's an
If you
issue.
are, actually, we don't want you as a listener.
Jake will be keeping the
Yeah,
seat
Jake
warm.
will keep the seat warm for
If
you,
you
man.
are, you're probably not friends with me on Facebook.
Same number, same hood, it's all good. And if you don't know, now you know,